Now there's a $5 billion makeover that's actually coming to San Francisco. A lot of it's already in process right now with some renovation that's going on, a lot of rehabilitation of certain buildings, converting them into actual living spaces, improving transit, all kinds. This is not including the $200 billion AI thrust that's actually taking place here in the city that's absorbing a lot of the office space and probably what's ultimately going to make San Francisco 2.0 look the way that it's going to look. Now AI is no joke because the industry is expected to explode to 1.8 trillion with a T, $1.8 trillion by the year 2030. And much of that is going to be right here in San Francisco. But can San Francisco actually return to its glory years? Or is it going to look totally different? I think one thing is for certain, there's going to be change. You can't have what happened here in 2020 and those years right after and not expect to just return back to what you had before. Something's going to be different. So can the city actually be changed? Or is this whole doom loop thing actually for real? And the city is just basically going to look like some kind of slum. My name is Arjun Dhingra. I am a two-time Taekwondo world champion and a 23-year veteran of the mortgage industry. I love bringing videos like this to the market space to help people understand how to take out responsible debt when it comes to mortgages, but also how to study and evaluate markets like San Francisco by looking at what's going on with them, why are people moving to them, and in the case of today's video, why people have left. Now, this city was once, and probably still is, for all intents and purposes, the center of the world's innovation. You've got so much capital that flows through here, so much innovation in the way of medical, bio, and financial. But before I show you what San Francisco actually looks like now, I think it's important to look back on what actually happened. So in 2020, we had COVID. Prior to that, we already had a big surge in crime, drugs, and homelessness that was driving people out of the city to other areas. Some of them were even actually leaving the state. Then you have a pandemic that came in and closed down the entire city. Retail suffered, small businesses closed, many of them haven't reopened, and we have a huge vacancy rate now in the city in the actual commercial space, but more importantly, in office space. Employment and how people go to work changed dramatically, and a lot of companies and businesses have had a difficult time getting their employees to come back to work. So much vacant retail space, large retailers exiting this market. You have a downtown that looks dramatically different. In fact, it's never been this way in the history of San Francisco. So high taxes, crime, and really expensive way of living led to a massive exodus here from the city. Throw in COVID-19, the pandemic, and the city's lockdown policy, and you had a huge uptick in vacancy in actual office space. Nearly a quarter of all office spaces are actually empty right now in downtown San Francisco, which is the highest that it's ever been in the city. And it's actually the highest rate in the entire nation. Most tech companies have shifted completely to remote work. And the ones that are still down here are trying still to get their people to come back to work with very little or no success. Now, the city was heavily reliant on tech, with 38% of its entire office inventory occupied by tech companies. And with tech now changing in terms of how they have their people working, some of these companies actually having left this market or the state, it's leaving a big void. This spot here, classic example, this is Kearny Street, which connects the financial district and North Beach, which is where my office is here, or actually Jackson Square. So many retail fronts look like this. They're boarded up and closed because a lot of these businesses just couldn't survive the pandemic. And when the city finally did reopen, it was already too late. As a result, a lot of these areas sadly ended up becoming just a doormat for either homeless people, which couldn't be taken care of by the city because it's completely overburdened in this space, or just drug users who overdose and just end up crashing in front of a retail spot, which ends up hurting the business, hurting the ability for tourists to be able to walk along the sidewalks or people just to commute to their office. So all of these cultural shifts here are changing quite dramatically how downtown life actually is in San Francisco. Prior to the pandemic, all these streets were completely packed with people walking to and from work, frequenting bars or happy hours after work, going to coffee shops for meetings, shopping at some of these nice retail spots that are along the way. Now, very, very different. This street here is where my office was prior to the pandemic. You wouldn't be able to walk up and down it without bumping into people that you know. And now, as you can see behind me, there's only one guy who happens to be the owner of that business, Old Shanghai, which nobody goes into anymore. So high housing costs and gentrification have led to a lot of tension between local residences and businesses and people that are trying to move into the city. The median home price in 2014 eclipsed the 1 million mark here in San Francisco. Now, homelessness and lack of affordable housing has continued to be a major issue here, despite all the tech companies investing hundreds of millions of dollars to try and address it. But despite all of these hurdles, there may be some light at the end of the tunnel here for us in San Francisco. We're gonna walk to Union Square and talk a little bit about what's going on with a lot of the major retailers that are down there. Look at some of the foot traffic and what's going on with tourism, which continues to remain an issue. This was a great restaurant that actually used to be down here. It was Super Duper Burger, I think. I'd come here to get my fries for my afternoon snack. Don't judge me. This was a bar that was down here that used to get frequented a lot by people that would show up for happy hours after work, also closed. See loads of retail space that's now available. These were all either shops or small businesses of any kind, also out. Now it's hard to say what's gonna actually come in and replace some of these, because while we're talking about the office space downtown being occupied in large form by AI companies or some tech companies that haven't quite given up on this market, or new businesses that'll hopefully be attracted to San Francisco, it remains to be seen what's going to happen to actual retail spots that were formerly occupied by a small business that sold clothing or gifts, or if it was even just a small restaurant or cafe. With decreased foot traffic down here, it's hard to justify the numbers because these leases or the cost of real estate has not actually gone down if you're someone that's actually trying to take out space. It is crazy. I'm telling you, this street used to be lined with people. It's Monday morning right now when we're filming this. It'd be shoulder to shoulder on this street with people just buzzing, great energy, infectious vibes, people hustling and bustling, going to business, going to get coffee, making deals, on their way to lunch. But as you can see, these streets are actually now quite empty. Another thing that actually hurt San Francisco over the last couple of years has been the pullout of major conferences. San Francisco used to be one of the major destinations for conferences, particularly anything that has to do with corporate finance, biotech, or technology in general. But a lot of the systemic issues here in the city have forced a lot of these people that host such conferences to change their location. Here's Sutter Street, which basically borders on the top edge of Union Square, the major shopping area and tourist attraction of San Francisco, and Chinatown. But we passed by 1, 2, 3 vacant spaces. This was a cafe that I used to come to all the time for meetings. These other 2 spots were large retailers, also closed down. This one is the one that breaks my heart the most. Banana Republic used to have its flagship store right here. This is one of the largest pieces of retail real estate that you could get in the city. They occupied 2 or 3 floors, I can't remember exactly, but it was a massive part of this building right here, and they pulled out. And I don't exactly see what kind of a business would actually want to sign a lease to take over such a large space. Here's another one, retail, closed up. Now we're at the top end of Union Square. Chinatown's directly behind us, but as we head in here into Union Square, you'll see where a lot of these retailers that used to formerly be here are no longer here, and you basically got a little bit of a ghost town effect. So Banana Republic, as we talked about earlier, was in this space, gone. See here, 4 lease, gone. Another one, 4 lease. You can't go 3 buildings in a row or 3 spots in a row without finding a for lease sign. Some retailers have been able to ride it out because they're still banking on San Francisco making some type of a retail comeback, or the tourists will once again flock to here. Local politicians will tell you that San Francisco downtown has changed, specifically these major shopping areas, because retail has changed and that more consumers are opting to shop online and that Amazon has changed everything. And that is the reason, not the cultural or social issues that have been driving people out of here, but that retail changing is the reason why Banana Republic, Macy's, and other major retailers have decided not to renew their leases. And even some major hotels have decided to turn in their keys and say, we're out of here. I say that here in front of yet another vacant retail spot. It's all categorical BS. And here's the reason. Major markets like San Francisco and New York, to name the 2 most known ones, are always going to be shopping destinations. Tourists from all over the world travel to these markets to not only experience the city and the culture and the way of life and the fine dining, but also the shopping. They come there to shop. It's part of the overall experience. Nobody passes up on going to San Francisco because you can shop online instead. That was just an excuse given by the city and its failed policies and failed leadership, more importantly, to kind of cover their tails. But the reality is the lack of law enforcement, keeping a city clean, standing up and defending its small business and retail community to keep tourists and citizens safe is what led to these retailers pulling out of the market. Make no mistake about it. Now, a lot of what I'm talking about might come off as negative, and I do want to give the city some credit because this part of the city, Union Square, has cleaned up considerably. Some of the efforts may be considered a little bit late, but still better late than never. So you're seeing that this area is a lot safer. You see security guards out in front of a lot of the major retailers like Neiman Marcus, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, because they want shoppers to come here and not only actually enjoy themselves, but feel safe, more importantly. And Union Square itself and the main plaza is a lot cleaner and nicer to actually hang out in. Perhaps the saddest news of all was Macy's saying that they're going to be exiting and leaving this market. Macy's is a huge national retailer. So many people know about them, and this was one of their largest and most well-known stores in the country. But as part of an economic recalibration for the company, they decided to pull out of many markets, and sadly, San Francisco is one of them. So So there's a lot of bright spots that are going on here in downtown SF as well. International travel and tourism have already eclipsed 2019 levels, indicating a huge bump in tourism and money coming back into the city. The city's unemployment rate stands pat at about 3.8%, which is below the national average and shows that the labor market here in San Francisco is actually quite strong. So while the tech sector has seen some layoffs, other sectors like government, healthcare, and education have seen a big uptick in employment, which is showing that this economy is resilient and dynamic. Freeway speeds and muni ridership have been seeing a big uptick as well, showing that people are getting back out there and moving about. Apartment rents have also been rising, showing that there's a big return of people coming back to the city to live here, and that the housing market is quite strong. And with respect to housing, if you're trying to actually find one, a single family residence, good luck, because any of them that come on the market are gone like that. But there is a major challenge that very few people are talking about, and that is the looming commercial banking crisis that's on the horizon, specifically centered around commercial real estate here in San Francisco. Downtown San Francisco is experiencing a major commercial real estate crisis, with the owners of office buildings, hotels, and other major commercial properties defaulting on loans or facing dire financial straits. This is due to a combination of factors including remote work, layoffs, departing companies, and a growing list of retail store closures that we already highlighted and walked through here in downtown San Francisco. The city's reliance on tech made it particularly vulnerable to the pandemic's economic impacts. Before COVID, 38% of San Francisco's office space was occupied by tech companies. Now, this crisis is expected to last for several more years, with experts predicting it could be a 5-year process before the city reaches the bottom. This threatens to significantly reduce property and business tax revenue, leading to budget deficits for the city. And while some of the top-tier office buildings are still attracting people, many landlords and property managers are citing that it's difficult to move these spaces. And if it continues to remain difficult, some of these people may be forced to turn their keys back into the bank. So while a lot of hotels here in downtown San Francisco are continuing to find their way, in spite of the few that decided to either turn in their keys or just pack up shop and leave this market, it's a sign that a lot of these major hotel lines actually believe in tourism having a full rebound, and the numbers I shared with you earlier are actually evidence to that. Right here, 250 Post is one of San Francisco's oldest, if not the oldest retailer. I think 160-year-old retailer by the name of Gumps. Now, Gumps is really well known because they wrote a very impassioned letter to the city, basically citing that if you don't do something to start enforcing the laws, cleaning up this city, doing something to help protect retail here, we're gonna leave. And that's a very, very strong statement coming from its oldest tenant or oldest occupier of retail space here. Now, that was last year, and I think that message definitely landed in the mayor's office with a little bit of urgency, because it was around that time that we started seeing local politicians pay a little bit more attention and not just dismiss what's going on down here as either political theater or people just bitching about something. Because let's face it, we're in San Francisco and people like to bitch about a lot of things, even if it doesn't actually pertain to anything. So I can understand why initially they might have dismissed it. But when you've got retailers just leaving and people complaining in the droves that they are complaining, you've got to pay attention to your citizens. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that there was a $5 billion plan to help revitalize downtown San Francisco. And Mayor London Breed's initiative, called the Roadmap to San Francisco's Future, is all about this. So this roadmap has 5 key attributes: attracting a diverse range of industries and jobs, creating a clean, safe, and inviting public space, making downtown an active 24/7 destination, transforming downtown into a leading arts, culture, and nightclub hub, and proactively marketing to showcase the city's strengths and all its wonderful features. Now, like I said, so far key policies are actually starting to take effect, because you're noticing that the city is cleaning up. Now, granted, some of this came on the heels of President Biden and the Chinese Communist president visiting San Francisco, which many people complained would have been nice if you would just do that for the everyday citizens who have been here struggling through this, but hey, better late than never. Downtown has also become a lot safer and cleaner, which has been welcoming back residents. There's also some really major and exciting commercial and real estate developments that are going on here in the city. Mixed-use waterfront communities are being built in Soma, including Mission Rock, Pier 70, and Potrero Power Station. Now, all of this is going to bring about retail, more affordable housing, and life into these areas. So it's all good for the city. So there's a saving grace for anything, just like innovation or creating more supply can be the saving grace for inflation. AI could actually be that for San Francisco. Experts consider San Francisco to eventually become the AI capital of the world. And this is no joke when you consider that over 1 million square feet of office space has been signed into lease by AI companies here in the city. Companies like OpenAI and Anthropic leading the list. So what do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree with this? Drop me a comment on this and let me know if you think that AI is going to be the savior of San Francisco, or is it officially doomed? So if you're thinking about eventually moving to the Bay Area, I would love the opportunity to talk more with you, answer questions, or serve you in any way that I can. I'm also well connected to a strong network of real estate professionals that live and work in this market, which is very important. In my 23 years, we have helped over 2,000 families get into homes and have serviced over $1 billion in mortgage volume. So make sure to click on the home buying guide that's actually below here so that you can use it as a resource, or feel free to visit my website, arjundhingra.com, for more resources. And before you go, make sure you check out the video that we did here on the channel of comparing San Francisco to New York of the 1980s. And feel free to see if there's any similarities between what we're talking about today and within that video. That's it for this video. We'll continue to highlight what's been going on here in the city moving forward and see what type of new form San Francisco takes on as a city in its newest and most updated version. Of course, we're always hoping for the best, and we know that the city is going to be just fine. It's just going to be a question of what kind of a city will it look like. So stay tuned, and I will see you guys on the next video.